everyone, Melting Man 234 here, and welcome to another episode of Forgotten Media, where I dig up some stuff you may or may not have heard of. Today we'll be looking at another one of Nintendo's forgotten consoles known as the Gameboy Micro, a handheld system that was part of the Game Boy family that was released in September of 2005. The system is pretty small since it's about 4 inches wide, 2 inches tall, less than an inch deep, and weighs about 2.8 ounces.
It is so tiny!
Comparing it to a Game Boy Advance SP, it's really that small. It's pretty much the same size as an iPhone. As you can see, it has the usual control settings such as the D-pad, the L button, the R button, the A button, and the B button. The volume switches are now 2 buttons to adjust the sound of the system. The start and select buttons are underneath the system instead of being with the other buttons. This seems a bit like a bad idea. If you're playing the system on a table or sitting inside a moving car, there's a good chance you'll probably accidentally hit the start or select button, which can get very annoying. The 3 holes underneath the A and B buttons are the speakers. Unlike the other systems where they had a lot of holes for the speakers, this one only has 3. This could mean that you could get some very poor sound quality, but there is an option to plug in headphones so that way it would sound better. Just like the SP, the Micro comes with a backlight screen so that you can play it in the dark. It lasts up to 5 hours if the light's on the brightest setting, and 8 hours without it. The covers on the screen can be removable to switch it with other colored skins, since there is a variety of them. A few months later, Nintendo released a special edition of the Game Boy Micro celebrating the 20th anniversary of the Nintendo Entertainment System, aka the Famicom. So as you can tell, the skin is all designed in the Famicom style, and it is very hard to find nowadays. What makes this system interesting is that it also acts like an MP3, and it plays digital videos files. Just pop it in an SD card and you're all set. When it comes to the Game Boy genre, they had a couple of stuff for it, such as the e-reader, the printer, the camera, and so on. For the Micro, none of that stuff works on it. Instead, it only comes with its own charger that is slightly different than the SP one. But don't bother trying to use an SP charger on the Micro, because it won't work. Another problem with this system is that it's not backwards compatible, which means it can't play Game Boy or Game Boy Color games. I find it weird. The Game Boy Advance and SP were able to do that, so why not this one? When the system was released in the US, it didn't do so good with the sales. I remember seeing commercials for it, but never saw one in stores. That's because a lot of stores ignored it and didn't bother putting it on their shelves. If you tried to put the Game Boy Micro on the shelves of Walmart or Target or something like that, they would probably take one look at it and say, "Oh, that looks like one of those cheap LCD games you find at McDonald's or cereal boxes. There's no way we're letting that tiny piece of software into our stores." The Game Boy Micro failed to explain consumers of its value and just pushed aside like yesterday's paper. The Micro pretty much died in about a year and was never seen again. Even though the system was made in 2005, there isn't that many people who remember it since it was rarely seen in stores in the US. There's a ton of Game Boy Micros that can be found on eBay, usually up to 30 to 60 to 90 bucks. That is if you could find one that still works. After the Game Boy Micro came and went, this would be the end of the Game Boy systems, as Nintendo would do some work on the Nintendo DS genre. Of course, nowadays they've finished with the DS consoles and are doing some work on the Nintendo 3DS. In closing, the Game Boy Micro was trying to revolutionize the Game Boy series, but a lot of people consider it as a big failure. Well, that wraps up this episode of Forgotten Media, so this is Melting Man 234 signing out.